What's up, RotoGrinders? Welcome to NFL Showdown pre-lock. We got the Saints, we got the Packers, we got TJ Zwarych, we got Tim Buell. Shiver me Timbo. How you doing tonight, Tim?
Yeah, I'm doing well, TJ. We just broke down the basketball slate. Now we're on to NFL. Definitely some interesting news in inactives. No MBS. So the Saints have 4 active receivers.
4 active receivers, none of them very good. Onto their third string quarterback. It's tough out here for a Saints fan, but I guess at this point we want them to lose games anyway, so it doesn't matter by how much they lose them. But it's a 14-point spread, and it's just like, Green Bay onslaughts are going to be the chalk today. And I'd love to go, hey, I want to be contrarian because maybe the Saints win this game. Maybe things go wonky, but I just can't see any possible way that this isn't a blowout. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the 14-point spread, and I was like, I don't think that's enough. I'm probably not going to bet it, but if I were going to bet it, I would definitely take Green Bay minus the 14, which is, so kind of tough. It's going to be a tough game to watch. Luckily, we have DFS to entertain ourselves. But in terms of real life football, I don't think it's going to be a very good game.
No, couldn't agree more. This one is definitely bound to get pretty ugly. Let's start diving into it. Josh Jacobs is going to be a ridiculously chalky MVP and captain tonight on both FanDuel and DraftKings. You're only playing one lineup this evening like you usually do. What are you going to do with the mega Josh Jacobs captain chalk?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the primary decision point in terms of single entry showdown contests is what are we going to do with Josh Jacobs? It seems like they are have full intention to continue running this guy into the ground until they have a playoff spot locked up or playoff seating locked up. So I think I'm going to play him. I'm going to try to get really, really different in other spots because he's going to be so heavily owned in the higher dollar single entry contests. But I don't feel really comfortable attacking the Packers pass game. I don't feel comfortable at all with any Saints players at my captain or MVP. I guess you could maybe take shots on Rattler and maybe he rushes a TD. But really, I think that's super, super thin. We have Jacobs projected by 3 points higher than any other player. So really, I think it's going to be Jacobs for me.
Yeah, it's Jacobs for me too. It's just tough to imagine a scenario aside from, worst case scenario and injury. It's hard to imagine a scenario where Josh Jacobs just doesn't absolutely annihilate the Saints. Not a good run defense, massive spread. They've been giving him a ton of touches. I'm making bets on him to score 2 and 3 touchdowns tonight. I'm getting to as much Josh Jacobs as I physically can in every single format across the board. I'm not looking to fade it. I played about 20 lineups today. I have Josh Jacobs captain in about, I believe, 12 of them. And among those 20, I did a 3-entry max. And in that 3-entry max bill, that's much higher dollar. Jacobs he's the captain in all of them. Who would be your favorite pivot off of him in the captain position? I'm looking at these ownerships and I'm thinking that any Saint player like Spencer Rattler or Kendre Miller is somewhat interesting because Kendre Miller could catch 8 passes out of the backfield and end up optimal, even if they only score 10 points in the game. If you're loading up if the Packers end up spreading it out a little bit. Same with Rattler. If he gets some rushing yards, he runs one in, finds some garbage time touchdowns when they're down an absolute ton. I think it's possible. I think there's even routes where if you want to go one of the super cheap Saints receivers in the $300K to first, super cheap Saints receiver, and then play Love, Reed, Jacobs, Watson, Dobbs, any of these guys that you want with them. I think that's somewhat of a doable format as well. But my favorite pivot off of Josh Jacobs at captain, it's Brandon McManus, baby.
Oh, okay. All right. That's interesting.
Can't see a scenario where it's like they don't really care about gambling. This game is so under control. They're up 21 points at halftime, and McManus just ends up kicking like 4 field goals in the second half if they get stopped as they're kind of lackadaisical, not worrying about the game. Maybe some backups are in there, and they don't quite score touchdowns, but are still moving the ball against the putrid Saints defense. And McManus just racks up a ton of field goals like Brandon Aubrey did yesterday.
Yeah, I don't think that's a horrible take. I thought you were going to say Juwan Johnson. He's my favorite of the like super contrarian captains. He's going to be their wide receiver 1 essentially, I assume. If Rattler can get him the ball, he's only 4,400. I like Johnson quite a bit. He would be my favorite of like the super contrarian. I also like Christian Watson because he has massive big play upside. So if you didn't want to play a Saints captain, which obviously I don't blame you, and you didn't want to play Jacobs at captain, I do like Watson just because he's the home run hitter for this wide receiver room. So I don't mind getting to Watson at captain either. But in terms of Saints players, it would be Rattler and then Johnson for me.
I like the Johnson call quite a bit. I didn't really think of getting there, but maybe I might switch things up after we're off the show here to see if I can get one or two of my lineups in the 300K to first as a Juwan Johnson lineup, because I do like that call, especially as like a red zone target. If Saints aren't scoring a bunch, but he happens to say score 1 or 2 touchdowns, this could be a massive output for him today.
You talked about how like Keandre could be the check down guy. Well, really, it could just be a ton of short A-dots to Johnson as well. So I think Johnson is just kind of a cheaper play at that theory over Miller.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that one bit here. Going to take a look at Sim, see if it looks like Marquez Valdez-Scantling has been removed from the SimLabs. So it looks like SimLabs is good to go, ready to use here. Josh Jacobs coming in at a 27.8% optimal rate. Honestly, I expected it to be higher, if I'm being completely frank. I thought it was going to be like a 40%. We're showing negative leverage here, and in single entry, smaller field stuff, Jacobs is going to be like 50% owned in the captain, but it's honestly just, I don't see very many scenarios that he doesn't end up being the optimal play. Let's look at the flex position. There are a lot of cheap options that we can go with today. I mean, among the quarterbacks, actually, this is a good question before we get to the cheapies. There's a big price difference between Spencer Rattler and Jordan Love. Assume we're expecting a big run heavy game from the Packers in this spot. Would you rather play, if you're only getting to one quarterback, Love or Rattler?
Yeah, I think that is a good question. I mean, I think Love is a very, very, very risky fade just because raw points are going to be at a premium in this game, I would imagine. But he's also going to be probably 20% higher owned. I don't know. I think that's a really good question. I think that going the Rattler angle is probably better in the larger fields that you play in. If you're playing smaller field, I would probably just stick with Love.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. No disagreements from me there. Now let's look at the Packers receivers. We have 9K Jaden Reed, 8,200 Dobbs, 8,000 Christian Watson. You mentioned liking Watson as a very contrarian captain option today because he could break off a big one. But how do you rank those 3 Green Bay receivers in the mid tier? Because more often than not, we'll be playing at least one of them in our lineups.
Yeah, I mean, I would get to at least one in your lineups. I prefer Watson at captain just because he's not a super safe guy for volume. I would much rather play somebody like Jaden Reed or Romeo Dobbs in the flex. Don't really like either one of Reed or Dobbs at captain, but I do like them quite a bit in flex. I haven't run Sims yet. I'm not sure if they're going to be over-owned or not, but it looks like Reed is decent at 30% optimal, 29% owned. So I think Reed is probably my favorite out of these flex guys. Probably, yeah, I'm looking at Juwan Johnson now. He's a little bit over-owned, but not horrible. Just kind of looking back at that play. Yeah, so I would definitely say Reed is my favorite out of the flex guys for the Green Bay wide receivers. You want to mute?
I like Reed, I like Dobbs, and Christian Watson comes third for me as well. In the mid tier of kickers, defenses, and tight ends, Tucker Kraft, I think, is going to be the odd man out for me. I think if he has a really big day, I just am not. I don't mind Blake Groupie as like the only Saint player in a lineup. If, say, they score a couple field goals early and that's all they kind of get, he could easily end up being the leading scorer if their offense just does absolutely nothing. Juwan Johnson, probably the best sub 5K salary saver on the whole slate. Green Bay defense is overpriced, but it's against the Saints offense. So can they be overpriced?
They get a little bit of positive leverage right now. No, I think they'd be okay. 6,200. It's not horrible. I mean, the Saints are really going to struggle here, I would imagine. So, I mean, Rattler's really going to struggle. This whole offense is really going to struggle. So it's a really good spot. If you don't think they're going to get steamed, which I probably they're not going to, I don't mind Green Bay at all here. They're going to be probably around 25% owned, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm getting to a lot of Green Bay defense in this spot, and I'm getting to a lot of Brandon McManus. I love the trio of Josh Jacobs, Brandon McManus, and Green Bay defense today. That's where I want to start my builds. I think that they correlate best for a blowout together. I think kickers kind of get forgotten in a blowout, but when the winning team has a bunch of points, often those field goals come towards the end of the game, and I like building that way quite a bit. Among the Saints cheapies, who are you going to prioritize here? Because we have, like you said, only 4 receivers: Kevin Austin, Mason Tipton, Cedric Wilson, Dante Pettis, in that order. Austin probably going to be the one who gets the most targets. He's also the most expensive at 3,200. Foster Moreau is in that range as well. He's probably going to be involved, especially if they get in the red zone. Cedric Wilson has taken a backseat to Dante Pettis, and Mason Tipton has been on the practice squad. But when there's only 4 dudes and none of them are any good, they're probably going to be rotating in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for me to sift through these bottom of the barrel Saints players. I don't mind Foster Moreau at all at 3K. I think he would be a really, really good play for salary saving. I just don't have any faith in Rattler to get high 8-out players. So Moreau, I think, is probably the best or my favorite out of that group. I guess Cedric Wilson at 1,200 would probably be my next favorite, just because of the salary saving. But really, I think that's it. I mean, how many of these guys do we really want to play in one lineup? I think is the biggest question. Like
if
Max,
I'm playing Rattler, I'm
Max
okay
2?
with. If I'm playing Rattler, I'm okay with maybe 3, but otherwise Max 2.
So if you're playing Rattler, you would play 3 pass catchers?
I'm not playing 3 in any of my 20 lineups, but I would be okay playing 3 if I had Rattler. Like, I can very much envision a scenario where you go Josh Jacobs at the captain, Rattler and 3 pass catchers, and another expensive Packers player. And if Jacobs gets 3 touchdowns, that could be optimal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would I wouldn't feel comfortable playing 3 Saints pass catchers.
Large field
but
stuff's only like if
true,
you're like kind
yeah.
of playing a lot of lineups.
Yeah. I mean that I
I,
think
I,
that's
I
the
wouldn't set a rule to limit it if I had Rattler, if I was
right.
building a lot of lineups.
Yeah. And then I think, I mean, Pettis is what 1,000. What's he at for opto rate?
Who, sorry?
Pettis.
Pettis has got a 12% opto rate. He is my favorite of the group. He's been getting a lot of snaps lately. He's been getting some targets, and he's the cheapest. I think he's probably going to be. I think Austin and Pettis will be the 2 wide receivers in the 2 wide receiver sets, and they're probably going to run a lot of 2 tight end looks this week with both Moreau and Juwan Johnson on the field. And so I think in those 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end sets, Pettis and Kevin Austin are likely going to be the 2 that come up on there, and Pettis is going to be my favorite to target on this slate. He's the guy that I'm mostly planting my flag on, and it doesn't feel good, but I'm playing him as my only Saint in my 3 entry max lineups.
Okay.
I'm or no, sorry. One of them is Kendre and Pettis, and then the other 2 are Pettis as the only Saint. Just kind of expecting that to go absolutely nowhere. We got a pretty quiet chat so far, but if you got your questions, get them in the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat. Get them in the YouTube chat. YouTube, smash that like button, bringing you free content on the holidays. I understand that's we got a pretty quiet show because of the holidays tonight, but still, I'm happy about everybody here on the holidays joining us for some Monday Night Football. If you got questions, get them in the chat. They can be about the holidays, about some what's for dinner tonight, about the football game, whatever you like. Get your questions in. Let's go over to FanDuel, talk about the MVP position, because where there's not a salary multiplier on FanDuel, it's even tougher to get off of Josh Jacobs at the MVP position. Like, he's projecting for a 25% optimal rate and a 55% ownership rate on our FanDuel Sims right now.
Yeah, that's pretty massive. I'm getting to like basically like a ton of 4-1s, just like so many with Jacobs in the MVP. So if you get away from that 4-1, then I think you're going to be contrarian just like that. You know, if you go 3-2, even with Jacobs in the MVP, that'll be a little bit different. I can't believe the Packers D is showing up in the optimal at 9K.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't think I've ever seen that on FanDuel, at least. That's
absolutely
very rare.
ridiculous. But
That's very rare.
It's what you get in a 14-point spread. And I do think on FanDuel, if I'm playing large field, it's a little bit different on DraftKings because the ownership's not as extreme. I think on FanDuel, it's so tempting to do something over there, especially if you're an MME player running 150 lineups. Play 150 lineups, but you X out Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love at the MVP. And just hope it's literally anybody else who's the highest scorer. And you're going to be looking so good with all of those lineups. Rattler could do it. Kendre Miller could do it. Close to 10% opto rates for both of those guys, but combining for under 6% ownership. Like, it's real tempting to just throw in some Jaden Reed MVP lineups, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Spencer Rattler, Kendre Miller, Brandon McManus, Juwan Johnson, because nobody is doing it. And it's like, it's football. Anything can happen. Josh Jacobs could have 150 yards, but they go elsewhere in the red zone. Other people get the touchdowns, and he won't be the MVP.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really challenging to figure out who's going to be getting the scoring from the Saints. I'm seeing a lot of spreading out on FanDuel in terms of one-off Saints players, even getting to some Jamal Williams even, which is surprising. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty all over the place in terms of these value Saints. I'm seeing some lineups that are eating 4,500 on fan. You know what I mean? So I mean that's quite a bit for FanDuel. So
I want to take a look at some sims here. If we keep a low results range, because we don't have to do anything crazy, we don't have to. I'm even tempted to go single entry here for the sims instead of large field, and really just prop up the projection weight, prop up the simulation weight, because you don't have to get different today when you're playing when you're Xing out Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love at the MVP, so we can keep everything as optimal as possible. Let's see what it gives us when we're going without those guys today, because I think that's a really interesting way to build on FanDuel. Still giving us an absolute ton of Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs and flex. Perfectly fine. We want that. We don't want to fade those guys entirely. We just want to be making sure that we're getting to different captains, MVPs, since they're so highly owned. Spits out a ton of Rattler, even split of Reed and Watson. The Kraft stuff is kind of weird, but some Kendre Miller, some McManus in the defense. Romeo Dobbs is the guy that I'd want to get a lot higher up here. I don't need much groupie at the MVP position, but I'd want to make sure I'm getting as much Dobbs as Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, and then drop off that Tucker Kraft. But I think this is a really, really interesting way to build lineups on FanDuel today. Pick anybody else at the MVP position other than Jacobs and Love. And then if you're playing on DraftKings, you're doing both sites. That's where you load up on that's where you're loading up on Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love. So that's kind of how I like going about things today. People in chat asking about player props. Do you got any that catch your eyes today?
Looking at some anytime touchdown scoring odds. Well, you know what we both might like is the under Tucker Kraft receiving yards, which I think is 33.5 on DK right now. So I don't mind that one.
I don't mind some under Tucker Kraft whatsoever today. I'm basically just laddering Josh Jacobs on my betting sites all the way up to 150 rushing yards, all the way up to 3 touchdowns. But if you are looking for some props on like a pick'em site, I do like McManus over 1 or more than 1.5 field goals. I think that's a very, very interesting way to go about things today. And you can take those player props and bring them over to Splash Sports. If you haven't signed up for Splash Sports, now is the time. Use code ROTO10 and you get 100. If you spend $100 on quick picks, you get $50 back if you use code ROTO10. Check it out on splashsports.com/RotoGrinders homepage. And here at RotoGrinders, we got some deals going for you because the holiday season brings us some huge DFS contests for the NBA and NFL. We want you to have a massive holiday takedown, so we're taking $10 off your first month of Combo Lite. That means you get access to our SimLabs lineup building tool and all of our content from some of your favorite DFS analysts like myself and Tim, or in J3's case, Dean, for just $19.99. That's cheaper than all the Christmas presents you're going to be buying this year. It's an affordable subscription that has everything you need to build effective lineups, score a big win this holiday season. Smash the like button. Let's take some questions. Alexander the Don, he wants to play some Packers defense tonight, even in cash. Are you okay with playing Packers defense at their price?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. That's on DK, right?
Yeah,
that's fine.
Fine with it as well. Jim DeUmp is with me. He's liking some McManus today, and some Kendre to get different in the captain spots. I like that as well. I think Kendre makes for a very interesting contrarian captain on DraftKings, especially considering he could just catch a bunch of passes. What do you think about the Packers defense in the captain?
I guess I don't hate it. I very, very, very rarely play defenses in the captain. Right around 3% opto for captain. I don't really love it, but I'm pretty neutral to it.
How do you feel about some Foster Moreau captain lineups? Oof. I don't
like that. I'd rather go Juwan Johnson.
I need to make it clear I'm not taking a shot at Zach because this is a very reasonable and real question. It's just crazy that there's a slate that we're asking this question. But on FanDuel, last man in, Christian Watson or Packers defense?
That's a really good question.
As gross as it sounds, I think I would go Packers defense.
I might as well in the flex, yeah. Because to me, I think Watson's a way better captain play than flex play. So I guess it is the defense.
Jay Stamps is trying to figure out the best Cajun Christmas dish. Well, I don't know if either of us are going to be able to help with that.
That's
definitely
we are the wrong host to answer that question.
Yeah.
We live a long ways away from Cajun country.
Yeah, we lack the spice in our lives here in Maine and Saskatchewan. Let's see. Favorite MVP on FanDuel other than Love or Jacobs?
Miller.
Why am I brain farting and forgetting who Miller is? Kendrick. Duh. Yeah, geez. I had a complete
it happens.
Gone there, but Kendra Miller, I like that contrarian option for FanDuel tournaments, large field, getting different. That's about it. Eric Johnson saying, TJ, you don't think the Saints can pull off this upset? No, I do not think the Saints can pull off this upset. I would be absolutely shocked if they did. No Olave, no Kamara, no Taysom Hill. They just don't have any playmakers. I do think Rattler has a little bit of potential, but not with the poor Saints offensive line. He's a guy that struggles with pressure, and there's going to be some pressure.
What about Brooks or Wilson?
Brooks and Wilson, I like getting to in large field tournaments. I'm playing them even in some lineups where I have Jacobs at captain.
Yep, makes sense.
Basically, just like this is a 4-touchdown game in the second half, and now the backups are in there. Dean says, how do you guys not know about beignets? I love me some beignets. Beignets are delicious. It's just donuts. I didn't realize that was specific to Cajun and just not French. I apologize. I didn't realize that. But yeah, I absolutely love me some beignets. I thought that was just a French thing in general. That'll do it for the NFL Pre-Lock Show. Believe it or not, we are back tomorrow for some more NFL and NBA content. Eric Johnson asking if Christmas is in Canada is the same day as it is in the USA. Christmas is the same day everywhere across the world. Come on, guys. What are we even doing here? But we're going to be back on Christmas Day for some more NBA and NFL content at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Myself and Eric Beimfor will be on the NFL Pre-Lock Show for the Christmas slate. And then we're going to be talking the NBA Christmas slate tomorrow as well. That'll be myself and Tim back here tomorrow as well. So Christmas Eve, you can see us again. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah. Hanukkah and Christmas falling on the same day this year, so that should be some fun celebratoriness for everyone. Happy Kwanzaa. Whatever you celebrate, hope you have a great few days with some family. Hopefully you get some rest. Well, yes, I know there are different cultural Christmases on different days, but that's not the same as the original Christmas. Ukrainian Christmas is on a different day too, J3. I know that, but that's not what I mean. I mean like the Christmas day, not a specific cultural Christmas day. But that's not important. J3 is just trying to rattle me at the end. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. On behalf of myself and Tim, we will see you next time. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.